My name is Anya Sarang. I work in Moscow, Russia, and I've been asked to tell a story about our country, like a small case example for you guys, from a country with probably one of the worst AIDS policies in the world, and also the country where AIDS epidemic, unlike other countries in the world, is still developing. Well, first of all, some background about the situation in Russia, because many of you may not be familiar with our country. The HIV epidemic in Russia is mostly driven by injecting drug users. It's still about maybe 70% of all the HIV cases are among this group. And we have a huge population of injecting drug users. Of the country population of 130, 140 million people, about 5 million people use drugs, and the estimated number of opiate users is 1.6 million. This is like the main drug that is used intravenously in Russia. What's going on there? I'm intrigued. So yes, the HIV prevalence in this group is very high, and average estimation for HIV prevalence in Russia is 37%, while in some cities in the group of injecting drug users, it reaches 75-80%. Of all the IDU population is infected with HIV. At the same time, we have other health issues which are related both with drug use and with HIV. About 90% of people who use drugs also have hepatitis C, and there is a huge number of people who are co-infected with both viruses. One of the main causes of death for people with HIV is now tuberculosis, and tuberculosis is spreading very quickly in Russia. We are now becoming the world third country in spreading of multi-drug resistant tuberculosis, and as I said, that is the most important cause of death for people with HIV now. Most of the people who have both tuberculosis and HIV are injecting drug users. Tuberculosis mostly develops, unfortunately, within the state institutions, which is hospitals and prisons. This is like the main producer of TB, and TB treatment is not effective at all. We did a study just recently which showed that up to 100% of people with co-infection of HIV and TB drop out of the TB treatment. In some cities, 100% are not being able to complete the treatment cycle, which leads to development of MDR-TB. So what is the government response to this problem, this health problem of people who use drugs? Unfortunately, the government has focused very hardly on repressions rather than developing health interventions. And I don't know how much you heard today about effective interventions that were proven and found most effective in preventing HIV in this specific group, injecting drug users. And I'm talking about harm reduction programs such as programs of access to sterile needles and syringes, and programs of opioid substitution treatment, programs of peer counseling for people who use drugs on HIV, and so on. Unfortunately, the Russian government does not support or fund any of these interventions. We don't have like prevention programs for people who inject drugs at all. And moreover, the government ideologically opposes these scientifically proven interventions. The methadone substitution treatment is illegal in Russia, and the needle and syringe programs, while they are not illegal, they are not supported at all, and they are opposed by the government and were declared as a threat to the national security. This is the quote from the Ministry of Health of the Russian Federation, who opposed openly in her speech in front of the president this interventions that are recommended by the World Health Organization and all the UN system and implemented throughout the world. The drug treatment programs that we have are very, well, just little in numbers, ineffective and inhuman. There are very outdated standards that are used that come from like Soviet era where treatment was used as punishment, including in repressive psychiatry. And still, as you can see from this quote, some of the drugs that are used in this treatment are more equal to torture than to treatment. Because the state drug treatment is not developed at all, the private drug treatment lacks quality standards, and there are very strange practices that are used and that are patented in Russia for private drug treatment. For example, I just like put several examples from a recent study of the patented approaches to drug treatment. Like you can see some of the weird ones, like the general and individual prayer is performed during the procedure. During the prayer, the healer is performing slow movements of hand above the vessel and the patients. The comatose therapy shall be alternated with electroconvulsive therapy every second day. Or like the last one, patients receive the Xena implant of donor fetal brain tissue with the use of cloth of bluish spots laboratory mammal in the amount of 15 milligrams. So like weird things like that happen and are patented in the country to use in drug treatment. Well, so we see that there is no effective treatment that is offered to people. At the same time, the law enforcement practices are very violent. And on this slide, you see that out on the streets, drug users meet very cruel behavior of the police and a lot of violations, such as unjustified arresting, planting evidence, physical violence, rape, and extortion. And people are generally very afraid, which also makes them scared of any kind of state institutions, including medical institutions. So basically, instead of treatment, people get this violent law enforcement, and majority of drug users just end up in prisons. Like the studies show, up to 65% of drug users in some cities have the history of being imprisoned. And unfortunately, like prison in Russia is the worst place where anyone would want to be. And as I said earlier, it's the main source of tuberculosis. So for many drug-dependent people who have HIV, being imprisoned basically means a death sentence, because it's like almost 100% that they will get tuberculosis and will not be able to get cure. Also, many people report getting the HIV infection within the prison because drugs are available, as you can see in this quote. But HIV prevention programs are not. So we see this kind of paradox where we have the huge health problem and a weird or not adequate response of the government, which pushes the law enforcement measures. Did it result in like any improvement of the situation with drug use? No. We have huge epidemic of drug users, and the number is not dropping. But it has resulted in this big health problems. So I was just asked to talk a little bit how do we work and engage with media, and how can media help, or how do they help to encourage these bad practices, or how can they help to actually stop them? One of the most important problems that we have is the public attitude to drug users. And in Russia, the public statements in drug users about drug users sometimes are really like horrible and medieval. So drug users are presented not as, you know, people with a certain disease or condition, but as some kind of moral, cripples and monsters. Like on this slide, you can see a photo from the national TV, which was called "My Son is a Monster." So this is like a usual representation of drug users in mass media, and it's quite common that such terms are used as animals or scum, inhuman, dead man, or zombies. It's like quite normal terms still in even federal mass media about drug users. And unfortunately, instead of focusing the public attention on the government criminal actions or inaction, the media portrays drug users as the cause of this very problems. So our organization is a small non-governmental organization. We provide health services to drug users in Moscow, and we engage in advocacy, human rights protection. We work on the international level with different UN committees and document and report the situation in Russia. And also work within the country. We try to support drug users community and people speaking out about their situation, their lives and problems, and also to document all the human rights violations that they meet. In our work with mass media, we are trying to kind of shift this discourse and this blaming of people who use drugs, and they're portraying as some kind of scum and immoral creatures to represent them as what they are, which is human beings with some certain condition. And we try to promote the idea of humane and rational drug policy versus medieval discourse of scare tales. And we work with mass media. Unfortunately, we are like really tiny organization. We don't have an office. We don't have like big stuff. And we don't have money for some, huge efforts. But we try to provide seminars and trainings once in a while. We try to teach our community, friends, to talk with mass media. We organize press conferences on different issues, and we encourage people who are drug dependent themselves and who have HIV or tuberculosis to talk about their issues to press openly. So our main kind of recipe for mass media and for people who start to speak about this issue is meet a junkie, because some people, they write about about drugs or about HIV, but they have never actually met anyone, so they have this stereotype of drug users. So we try to put them in touch with with people we work with, and so we get this kind of nice representation of drug users in the press. And this is just some of the coverage that we received on the situation in Russia. This is mostly from international press, which is more kind of open and reactive to the problems in Russia, unfortunately, than our own journalists. But you should understand that press in Russia is not independent. Now we we decided to try to fundraise for our activities through press also, because as I said, the government does not fund any prevention interventions, so we have to fundraise through our own channels. And one of the campaigns that we are doing, we are collecting money for the minivan to provide health services to drug users, and it was really quite interesting collaborations through press. Unfortunately, we weren't able to really collect any money through this channel, but at least the information and the public, discussions or why I should help drug users, why should I donate money for this campaign, to provide syringes and provide some prevention information to these people. It was actually quite amazing and successful, and it made many people to talk and discuss and think about these issues. So I found maybe it was not so successfully money-wise, but in terms of the public discussion, it was a very good experience. So this is my brief presentation, and I will be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Hi, Anya. I'm Victoria Kupchinatsky with the Russian service. It's so nice to see you again.
Good to see you.
Thank you so much. We already actually communicated with Anya, and she answered part of my questions this week. I just want to ask you, what can you learn from the Western experience? Because the situation in terms of the public attitude towards drug users, HIV-positive people, 30 years ago in this country also was appalling. Mm-hmm. But there were moments and work, systematic work that has been done in the United States, in the West, and European countries that has, in a way, turned the tide, right? What do you think can be done in Russia in those terms?
Mm-hmm. Maybe we should learn from the Middle Eastern countries, in terms of Spring Revolution and things like that.
But I'm not talking about the regime changes by any means. I'm talking about society.
To be honest. No, really, because Russian government presents itself as very kind of sophisticated and also knowing all the answers. So when, for example, WHO or UNAIDS try to convince the government that they should use the prevention approaches that were studied and were found effective in everywhere else in the world, the Russians says, no, it's not going to work here, really. So unfortunately, it's really the issue of stubbornness of people who have the power, and they just don't want to invest in any kind of HIV prevention.
Mm-hmm. Can I ask you another question? In terms of the Russian media, the journalists themselves, I know there are a lot of very, very sophisticated, intelligent, educated journalists in the Russian Federation. Mm-hmm. So do you think they are not helping very much in terms of changing the attitude because of the government pressure, or because they honestly believe that the so-called junkies are morally weak people who should be just left to their own devices?
Well, I wouldn't generalize here, because there are great journalists that write great pieces on this junkie issue, and about drug users. But amazingly, there is a huge problem with journalists, or as we call intelligentsia in Russia, because of many of them actually support this, punitive and inhuman approach to drug users. For example, there is a rehabilitation or so-called rehabilitation center in Russia where people used to be chained to their bed and tortured and beaten up. And, it was a huge public support for this approach to drug users. And many people just talked publicly about it, and they said, yes, but drug users, they're not really human, so human rights is not about them, human treatment is not about them, chaining them to bed, kidnapping them from their houses, beating them up, it's normal because that can actually help. And that was heard from the top authorities in human rights defenders or journalists or writers, intelligentsia. So really the public stigma is so huge that it's very difficult to influence it. But there is more and more journalists and public speakers who now move their position and who start to understand that yes, maybe drug users are actually human sometimes.
Thank you.
Hi, Anya. It's good to see you here. I have two questions. Number one, for a person who is not from Russia, can you give us an understanding why these people are against these kinds of policy, these good practices in your country, when in fact it can be beneficial in the very long run, especially in turning the tide of HIV infections in your country? And second of all, your foundation has been somehow under the scrutiny of your government because of the things that you are doing. My second question would be, how do you cope out with it, or how do you manage to somehow stand against government pressure? Because as far as I know, your website was shut down by your government in the previous month, and there was this kind of harassment that has been going on with you and your organization. Thanks.
Well, in terms of the first question, why the government doesn't support these interventions, I wish I knew, but we can only theorize about it. We know that all the HIV prevention advocacy work of like almost 20 years now in Russia have been not successful. And as I said in the beginning, it's the only country in the world where HIV epidemic is still on the rise. And it's really difficult to explain this ideological, like strong resistance of the government to the effective prevention. The recent kind of ideas why the government, well, recently, like for example, last week UNAIDS, or actually several days ago, UNAIDS has issued the report on the epidemic, and they have praised the Russian government for investing into HIV, and even like call them the new leaders or something. And they do actually invest a lot of money into HIV treatment. But if you look at this, if you look at what's going on, you can see that while huge money is invested, it's not properly spent. So we have a very bad situation with procurement of ARV drugs. And we still have huge treatment interruptions every year for people who take ARVs. We have not enough people on treatment, and we have zero funding for HIV prevention at all. And the most HIV activists explain it was just simple factor of corruption, because it's profitable for the officials to invest in ARV procurement and get their personal profit from the auctions of selling the drugs, while on HIV prevention you wouldn't really make much money personally. But that's just like one possible explanation. In terms of my own organization, yes, we had some problems recently. In the beginning of the year, our website was shut down by the government by the letter from the Federal Drug Control Service, and the explanation for this was that we provide materials of drug propaganda, and drug propaganda is, like for example, the protocols of the World Health Organization on using methadone in substitution treatment, or like the WHO list of essential medicine, or all the protocols and guidelines on using substitution treatment. So that was considered as drug propaganda, and our website was shut down. And also we had multiple checks from like all kinds of ministry and economic police and the Ministry of Justice and the tax police. And there was some kind of, yes, pressure on the organization, but I don't know, we are coping. We actually went to the court and we sued the Federal Drug Control Service for shutting down our website without any kind of investigation or without any kind of court. So basically doing it illegally. But I mean, this case is still running. We just moved the site to the American hosting. But the main problem is that the political situation in Russia just gets worse, and our organization is not the only one who is suffering from the repressions, because really the political repressions, they grow, and there is big legal initiatives on just making it possible to shut down any internet website by just simple letter of some official who didn't like it. So it's really, I mean, in general, the situation gets worse after the recent election. So we're just one of many who is suffering from the government repression. I wouldn't say that makes us happy, but that makes us not lonely, at least.
Thank you, Anya.
Thank you.